Orders of the day.
Ballot item number 66, Order M96, second reading of Bill 96, an act to amend various acts in respect of democratic participation. Madame Lalonde.
The member for Orléans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move second reading of Bill 96, an act to amend various acts in respect of democratic participation.
Madame Lalonde has moved second reading of Bill 96, an act to amend various acts in respect of democratic participation. Pursuant to Standing Order 98, the member has 12 minutes for her presentation.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Democracy is one of Ontario's core and defining values. Strong democratic institutions, an informed public, and robust democratic participations are necessary elements of a truly successful society. It is an honor to lead off second reading debates of Bill 96, the Democratic Participation Act. Democracy is more than voting every 4 years. It is an ongoing process. It's something that we live every day, even if we don't notice it. It's a state of mind. The word democracy has Greek origins, and it means the power of the people. It is time to make some changes to enhance the power to the people. Ontarians feel disconnected from politics and the political process, and for good reason. There are problems that need fixing. We must improve transparency. Nous devons encourager la participation, and we must do a better job educating citizens about our system and our democracy itself. The bill is intended to start and to spark a collective discussion to identify and address our democratic challenges. The legislative process itself provides a place for this conversation to begin. Legislation is typically proposed as a fait accompli. There is little discussion on how a problem was identified or if other solutions were considered. Defending a bill against criticisms becomes the primary focus. I am sure we can all agree that the focus should be on finding the best solutions. If Bill 96 passes second reading and reaches the committee stage, I want to study it in a new way. I want to show how existing process can be used to expand democratic participation with transparency and openness. The discussion and consultation about the content of this bill should exemplify a new way of identifying and solving problems. Listening should replace defending. We should be open to changes. There should be a real conversation with the public about other possible options, other possible solutions, and even other possible problems. People should know why decisions are made. They should know if other options were considered. To have real democracy legitimacy, the entire process should be transparent and open, with the real input and real participation of Ontarians. Democracy, Madam Speaker, is messy. Whenever democracy is discussed, opinion will differ. The change proposed in this bill require research, discussion, and consensus in order to have legitimacy. And most of all, it requires the voice of Ontarians. So I would now like to touch on the specific changes proposed on Bill 96. Today, more than ever before, we expect more and we demand more on our youth. Youth today pay taxes as soon as they start earning income. They can get married at 16. They can get a driver's license at age 16. Before they turn 18, it is expected that youth will decide on a career path, which university or college they will attend, or which trade they will make their life's work. And with all these responsibilities, they don't have a role in choosing their representative at Queen's Park. We cannot expect you, young people, to have an interest in a government in which they can participate. Young people, disenchantment with the ballot box matters because voting is an habit. If you don't vote when you're young, you often never start. Madame la Présidente, il y a des faits pour nous démontrer ce point. In 2014, Scotland allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in their independence referendum. The results? Of those registered, three-quarter turnout to vote compared to only 54% of 18 to 24 years old. In 2007, Austria became the only Western country where 16-year-olds could vote in all elections. And turnout rates for under 18s are markedly higher than the 19 to 25 years old. Madame la Présidente, on se souvient qu'en 1971, nous avons changé l'âge légal du vote de 21 à 18 ans. Parce qu'on a réalisé que cette génération a réalisé que la société avait changé et que les jeunes adultes de 18 ans avaient droit de participer à l'élection de leur gouvernement. Speaker, with all that we expect of our citizens aged 16 and 17, it is past time to give them a voice in choosing who governs the province in which they live. The bill also asks that we need to prepare students to exercise their rights to vote. Maybe starting in grade 1 or early on, we would educate kids about civic engagement and democracy. And we could have mock selection in the classroom during general, provincial election, or municipal, I must say. Another aspect of this bill, Madam Speaker, is that if passed, it will mandate the Chief Electoral Officer to study and report on several things. First, we would like a study for making Election Day a provincial holiday to help improve voter turnout. Working family leads busy lives between work, school, taking kids to baseball practices, and other responsibilities. Finding time on a Thursday between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. is not always feasible. I heard from many people when consulting on this bill that finding time to vote was not always easy. So during my own youth council, Madam Speaker, it was brought up that having Election Day be a holiday would allow more people to have the time available to vote. Another point that we would ask in this bill for study is banning the reporting of voter intention polls during election campaigns and allowing certified pollsters to release issue-based polling. Elections should be about who we are and our choices. They should be about the idea that drive government action. Horse race type polls do nothing to add to this discourse. They contribute nothing to the debate on issues. They only serve to anoint, quote unquote, winners and losers. Issue-based polls could be allowed by political pollsters who have received mandatory accreditation to ensure that they are meeting professional standards. Another point of a study that we've been asking is expanding the mail-in voting. Once again, making participation in an election more accessible should always be our goal. For many citizens, traveling to a polling place on election day is not always feasible, whether due to physical restriction, time constraint, or especially for those who live in rural and remote communities. Travel distance is a burden. Allowing for mail-in voting would address those concerns. Mail-in voting is already practiced in many jurisdictions to increase participation in election. Another important point, Madam Speaker, is the study would be about looking at mandatory voting. This is a practice that is practiced in Australia and Belgium. They've adopted one since 1925, Madam Speaker. And I had the privilege of meeting some parliamentarians on the subject who have demonstrated as to the increase in voters' turnout. Those two countries specifically refer to fine as if you're not voting. I would encourage the study to look as an incentive, Madam Speaker, and that's very important for me to note. But voters would be required to vote, indeed, in person on election day or in advance. Voters would be able to refuse or spoil their ballot. The other part that I would like to have a consideration in this bill that we're proposing is a ranked ballot pilot project in upcoming by-elections or during the next provincial election, and a full analysis of its effectiveness. Madam Speaker, people have complained that our first-past-the-post system results in wasted votes and encourage strategic voting. Ranked ballots, where voters can rank their preferred candidates, could address these complaints. And I know my colleagues beside me will be talking on this as to something that she brought in at the municipal level that they are able to exercise. Madam Speaker, the status quo is not working. Study shows declining support for democracy among millennials. Why? Why do we not take our democracy? Why do we take our democracy for granted? Maybe because there is no perceived impact on government, no real participation, declining faith in institutions, excessive focus on partisanship rather than solutions. In preparing to introduce this bill, I undertook 6 months of consultation. I spoke to and listened to voters and potential voters about our democracy. I traveled to many parts of our province, including Welland, Windsor, London, Kingston, Toronto, and of course, my own riding of Ottawa Orleans. I would like to say a few special thanks. I want to say thank you to Brock University, the University of Guelph, Western University, the University of Toronto, where I was able to hold roundtable with students. I also want to say thank you to my own youth council in Orléans, and to Mark Henschel, along with his brother, who visited during the Christmas holiday to speak to me about democracy and this proposed bill. I also would like to thank my colleagues, Arthur Potts, Sophie Kiwala, Kate Graham, who've helped me with roundtables. Madame la Présidente, these proposed changes are by no means a cure-all, but they do represent prudent steps that would help improve our democratic process. I look forward to hearing further debates with my colleagues, and I look forward to beginning the conversation and to strengthening democratic participation in Ontario. And I certainly hope that we'll have your support on this very important piece of legislation. Merci beaucoup.